Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on prospecting in the new normal. We're so glad that all of you could attend our webinar today. Before we get started, I'd like to go through just a couple of housekeeping items just to make sure that everyone has a great experience throughout the webinar. First thing is, if everyone can take a moment and locate the questions pane on the GoToWebinar panel. This is where we will be taking questions throughout. So if you'd like to type your questions in, we'll answer those questions throughout the webinar, or if you want to hold your question till the end, we'll also have a Q&A where we will take those questions as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to today's host, Derek. And Derek, take it away.
Thanks so much, Amy. Thank you all for joining today's webinar, Prospecting in the New Normal. My name is Derek Wyszynski. My title is Chief Sales Hacker here over at ZynBit. I have about 30 some odd years in the technology industry, on both sides of the table, both as a purchaser and a buyer, and as a seller and a salesperson. So hopefully what we're going to go through today is a little bit about what I feel is important for us to really concentrate on as B2B salespeople in the new normal we find ourselves in the new universe we find ourselves in. It's going to be a two-part kind of webinar. The first part is going to be a little bit of proof source for you. I know many of you who are jumping on this webinar are very interested in social selling, are very interested in utilizing social media to prospect and to go ahead and bring deals and bring opportunities into your pipeline. I also know that many of you may work for large organizations that have a little bit of reticence for that. I can tell you that when I was working at Xerox, when I was a director at Xerox, I tried to push social selling there for quite a long period of time, and there was a lot of resistance within my organization in order to do that. Now, when I was at Xerox, it was a $24 billion company. When I left, it became an $11 billion company. I'm not saying that's because of me or social selling, but what I will say is that I can understand how some large organizations may push back a little bit. So the first part, maybe first 15 minutes, are going to be a little bit of proof sourcing, talking a little bit about the environment we find ourselves in, and then we're going to go get into some meat and potatoes as far as some of the tools, some of the things that you can go ahead and utilize socially in order to engage prospects and engage customers. As Amy said, please feel free to ask questions throughout, and then we will have a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just start here. When I take a look at the sales environment, the sales ecosystem out there, I see primarily one particular challenge that all of us, regardless of vertical, regardless of what we sell, what widget we sell, and that has to do with prospecting and pipeline. The average rep or SDR will make 52 prospecting calls a day. Average salesperson sends 200 prospecting emails a week. And for most of us, the number one problem still is a lack of sales pipeline, the inability for us to get people interested enough in what we sell to become opportunities in our pipeline that we can move them through our sales process. It doesn't matter if you love cold calling or if you think email is the best thing since sliced bologna. Really, what's happening out there is the lack of interaction with potential prospects is what's killing our pipeline. And as you all know, since you're all quota-carrying salespeople, the lack of pipeline kills. So I call this issue the idle paradox, and I take it from the philosopher William Idle. And what William Idle said was more, more, more. And this is kind of the feedback that we get from sales leadership and executives in the organizations we work for. Our pipeline isn't big enough, so we have to make more phone calls. I'm not getting feedback from enough clients or prospects. You need to send more emails. It's kind of the go-to advice that we normally get from our organizations. So much so, I did write a post about it that you can take a look at it, where I do believe within our industries we do have a more problem. I think the main problem here is that we've got a lot of sales leaders and sales managers out there that really haven't worked a deal from prospect to close since maybe the Clinton administration or the Bush administration. So when they were selling, direct contact with sales reps, either phone, knocking on doors, was the main way clients found out how to sell stuff and things. So their answer is, of course, always more. Knock on more doors, make more phone calls, send more emails. The problem is, we, as you and I know, working in this environment, we don't exist in this. We don't exist in that world anymore, because there's a couple of brutal truths we find ourselves facing. The brutal truth is, when it comes to phones, 80% of the people we're calling don't answer the phone if it's an out-of-state number, toll-free number, or unknown number. That's just basic. We know that just picking up the phone, we know more often than not people aren't going to answer. And even those that have embraced email as a prospecting tool find out that less than 24% of our emails are actually even opened by our buyers. So the brutal truth is the way we've been trained to go ahead and communicate isn't working, because it's a dialogue, it's a monologue, not a dialogue. You can't sell someone something unless they're talking to you, period. You just can't do it. So how do we go ahead and do that? Well, what's going on? Why is this happening? And I kind of call this the evolution of B2B sales. And what it is that customers are looking for more automated ways to interact with organizations and vendors that sell them things. Gartner reports that about 85% of all relationships will be managed, the customer-vendor relationships will be managed without talking to a human being. Now, why is this? Well, quite honestly, if I can buy a house or price a house, buy a car, plan all my travel, and pack my new home with appliances, furniture, clothing, and knickknacks, all without talking to a salesperson, I can do that. I can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars as an individual without even talking to a salesperson. Why would I get in a car and drive to work and expect my experience to be different when dealing with a vendor? And that's the reality we're facing. So really, the first kind of sales hack that we're talking about here is that technology displacement is real. And our bosses, our organizations can poo-poo technology and innovations all they want. But if just a report was just released earlier this week, 65% of millennials say they would make a major purchase, that being over $1,000, by talking to a chatbot without talking to a person. And since millennials are going to make up about 75% of the B2B workforce, including decision makers and influencers, by 2020, as B2B salespeople and sales organizations, it's really time for us to start measuring what our personal value is in the sales process. It's really no longer what our widget or what our piece of software does, or what our whatever we're selling, what it does, what value. That proposition, that value proposition that's written on the whiteboard in the sales training room is really no longer our value proposition. Our value proposition to our prospects out there is what value we bring. So the way it is now, and I'm probably not telling tales out of school for the people that are on this call, we understand that the B2B buyer's decision has really changed. And they are consuming a lot of online content, and there's a massive influence from social media out there. It's increasingly difficult for us to sell our stuff and things to people with people that are knowledgeable and social media savvy. And it's important for our leadership to understand that really social selling, as we define it, is no longer really an option, but it's a requirement. And this is part of what this first part of this process is, or this first part of this webinar is, to give you those proof sources. Now, in the olden days, you guys may be familiar with the old AIDA, awareness, interest, decision, action, right? And in the olden days, the way customers found out about the stuff that we sold them was by us contacting them. I used to sell Xerox copiers door to door. I would knock on a dentist office door. I would knock on a doctor. I would go to a landscaping company, and I would knock on the door. I would talk to the receptionist, and I would talk to them about what I was offering. I would pick up the phone. Later on, I would send emails. This was the main way customers found out about what we sell. But with the advent of technology, that's moved way down the list, because with the environment that exists right now, with the internet, with social, awareness and interest is already something that the customer, the buyer, the prospect is able to do on their own. They don't need us to pick up the phone, to knock on their door, or to send them an email to tell them about our new widget or why our brand X is better than the brand Y that they have right now. So the awareness and interest that we normally had way back in the day when our sales managers and our sales leaders were selling really no longer exists, because our customers are already very aware of what's going on out there. So because of that, because that space exists up there, you see in the upper left-hand corner, we have to exist in that space as salespeople. We can't leave it to marketers. We can't leave it to people that are trying to speak from one to many. We need to have one-on-one conversations with people in the social space in order to go ahead and communicate our own personal value proposition, because really that's the only way you get the action, which is them sitting down with you and discussing how to purchase your product or service. Now, many of your managers will talk to you about prospecting the old way. You know, they would buy a list, they would go ahead and ask you to either get on the phone, send emails, knock on doors. And this worked for a great many years. But now we find ourselves waiting for feedback from calls and voicemails we leave, from emails that we send, from doors that we knock on and business cards that we leave, and nobody calls us back. Because when it comes right down to it, people, if you're not offering value yourself, there's really no reason for them to interact with you. Jill Rowley, who's if you take a look at her on the internet and LinkedIn, she's really big into social selling. She's also a decision maker in her own organization. If she doesn't recognize the phone number, she doesn't even check her voicemail. She doesn't even pick up the phone. So how do you sell to Jill Rowley? And that's what I'm interested in, and hopefully that's what you're interested in here in this webinar. Now, managing the data, talking a little bit about how our customers interact. Well, our average B2B buyer consumes about 5 pieces of content before they speak to me or you. 77% of them said they did not talk to a salesperson until they had performed all of their independent research. So think about those two things right there. Number one, they've already consumed 5 pieces of content online, talking about your solution, talking about the market, talking about whatever. And then by the time they pick up the phone and they call you, there's a 7 in 10 chance that they've already done all of the research that they need. And they're just calling you for price, or how can you give your value proposition or make your pitch, your elevator pitch, to that person who's already 7/10 through the way of the process, right? So what we're finding is that reps that really embrace social selling as part of their process literally outperform their contemporaries 3 to 1. Where they're meeting quota, where they're making their bonuses, where they're making larger commissions, where they're having bigger pipelines, because they're embracing social selling as a practice, as something that needs to be done, as opposed to something that's nice to have. So, okay, Derek, that sounds great, but how do we solve the problem? Well, we solve the problem by taking a look at the environment, creating great content, and having ways to track how that content is being being consumed by our markets, by our prospect. It's not just one, it's all of it. So it's not just the medium, it's not just phone or email or Twitter or LinkedIn, it's not just whether you're sharing content or creating fresh content, and it's not whether you're measuring phone calls or emails or web visits or whatnot. It's all of it. And so this is the conundrum we find ourselves in salespeople. It's a big ask. It's a big ask to be a B2B sales rep in 2017, because we have to embrace the new normal that we find ourselves in. So let's take a look at our second hack. And one of the things I want to tell you here is, although I gave you a lot of information up front for proof sourcing, right before we bust into what to do, I want to give you one more, which is the use of LinkedIn comments as far as a proof source for what you're trying to communicate to your leadership and management. I have found you can get more from LinkedIn comments than you can get from all the Gartner studies or anything else that you can download. What do I mean by that? Well, Brett Townsend is the head of North American Insights at Electrolux. He is the head of this part of the organization. It's a $12 billion international company. Kind of, they buy technology, they buy software, they buy process. Probably everyone on this call would like to have Electrolux as some type of client. we all probably sell something that they probably need. Well, Brett went ahead and posted this about a week or so ago, where he was talking a little bit about his issue. He moved from Coca-Cola or Pepsi, I think he was at PepsiCo, and he moved over to Electrolux. And he said that, just jumping over, he received 50 unsolicited contacts by salespeople. And even one guy or one gal left 12 voicemail messages. He's like, enough already. If we as salespeople don't know him, don't know his company, how can they ask for a meeting? How can we go out there and tell them that our tool, our widget, is what they need? This individual is always interested in learning and getting great insights. His title has the word insight in it. But how are we communicating to him? We're picking up the phone, we're sending him unsolicited emails, we're sending them marketing. And here's a $12 billion customer that all of us on this call could go ahead and reach out to today and potentially have something to do with. And it's not just him. If you take a look at his post, it had 1,400 likes and 455 comments. And you talk to other people, they go, look, cold callers are a giant waste of time and suck the life out of leaders. He fights this battle every day with Oracle and Salesforce and everyone. This is another buyer. Here's another buyer who's really not even blaming us. It's not our problem as salespeople. He understands what we're under. We're under pressure to meet numbers, and we're not prospecting the way that will actually help us or help the customer, right? And he says, I feel their pain, but cannot afford to share it. I simply don't have the time. There's an empathetic buyer who you would love to pick up the phone and call or shoot an email to or have a conversation with. And he's not going to answer the email. He's not going to pick up the phone because we're not reaching out to him in the most valuable way. So social selling in practice. So this is kind of encompassing of what we're looking at. There's multiple media channels, multiple things we need to be doing. There's also ways we can go ahead and interact and track customers and then measure with analytics, and then again with the mediums that we desire, whether it be phone, email, whether it be physical meetings. But the big point is 65% of buyers feel that your content as a vendor, had an impact on a final purchase decision. Not marketing content, not stuff that came from a brochure or something else, the content that we're providing as vendors. We are the first line in the sales trenches there. So it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and provide this level of content. So how do we do that? And so the rest of the webinar is going to be dedicated to that. So you've just been inoculated with all of the whys. Now we're going to talk about hows. Okay. So first, hows is that there are two services out there, Twitter and LinkedIn, that you should be engaged in. Many of you are engaged in some point, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that level of engagement should be and what you need to do with these two platforms in order to go ahead and start your process into social selling. So first things first, your LinkedIn profile is your billboard to your customers or people that could be your customers. And many of us in sales have our LinkedIn filled with stuff about how many years we were at quota, our President's Club awards, the deals we did, how many millions of dollars of business we did, pictures of us and our trophies and our awards, our banquets, all of that great stuff. There's a picture of all your prospects that care about the years you made quota. Your LinkedIn profile needs to be about your customers, not about you. It's no longer a resume. If you need a resume, write a paper resume and have it ready. You can send it to whatever hiring manager you want. Your LinkedIn profile, if you're in B2B sales, has to be about your ideal customer, the people that you're trying to sell to, because that's the way they find you. That's the way they look at you. That's what they're going to be looking at. Even if you pick up the phone and talk to somebody, they're going to hang up the phone and look you up on LinkedIn. And what are they going to see? Are they going to see how you can help them? Or are they going to see, your multiple trips to Maui because you made President's Club? So again, those things aren't bad. And I love going to the beach as much as the next guy. I love being a President's Club winner. But the issue is that what are you communicating to your prospects out there? So first things first, you have to scrub your LinkedIn profile. It is no longer a resume. think of it as a commercial. And it's a commercial for you, and it's a commercial for what you're putting forth for the company that you're working for. So let's take a look at that, and I'll use myself as an example here. So if you take a look at my LinkedIn profile, the very first thing is, what is it that I really do? Well, rather than talk about, you know, my actual title or things that, you know, I'm a VP of sales for multiple organizations, blah blah blah. What do I do? I'm into modern sales process improvement. I want to help with customer success leadership. I know how to generate demand. I'm pretty decent at social selling. So these are the things, these are the first things that people, when they search me, they take a look at. Secondarily, as you move down, you see I provide a lot of content, and we're going to go into a little bit of that, how that happens and how you can do that as well. But that content is there. I have multiple posts. I post other people's things. That's what I go ahead and do. If you look at the rest of my profile, you see number one, my current job is the job I focus on. Nobody that's talking to me to purchase something from ZynBit cares what I did at Xerox, or cares what I did at Viewpoint, or cares what I did when I was at the NSA back 25, 30 years ago, right? Nobody cares about that. What they care about is what I've been doing the last little while and how I can go ahead and help them. So that's where you have to go ahead and focus on. And it's not just text. Because LinkedIn provides you the capability to provide media, you can provide a recorded video intro. The ability to go ahead, whether it be like here where we created a little cartoon that talks about what we do, you can record it yourself on your computer and upload it that way. So it's an introduction. Maybe it's your 30-second elevator pitch to what you provide. But again, what you're trying to do is this. You can see here, this has nothing about me wanting to get a job somewhere else. This is about me trying to offer you all, which is part of my, you know, I sell to salespeople. I also sell to sales operations. I sell to leadership. This is about how I can go ahead and help my ideal customer. If you sell copiers, if you sell construction software, if you sell any number of widgets, there are ways that you can craft your LinkedIn profile to match that. Okay, so another little hacker here. I only reach out and connect to people that are potential customers, and I accept LinkedIn connection requests from people that could be potential customers. Way back in the day, I used to connect to my coworkers. I used to connect to people I went to college with or high school with. That's what Facebook is for. That's what all these other stuff is for. LinkedIn right here, you should be connecting to current customers and potential prospects. So go through your customer list and connect with every customer that you have. And the reason why is because if your customers are AP managers, you connect with those AP managers you've already sold or your organization has sold, they're going to be connected to other AP managers. And when you start sharing content that has to do with what AP managers are interested in, you're going to get second and third level views from people within their networks. And that's the most important thing when you're looking at connecting on LinkedIn. It's not about you. It's not about what you need. It's about who you're trying to connect to and what they need. So again, go out and then go into your customer list and reach out and make a connection request to every single customer you have. And if you do that, as you move through the steps here, we talk about creating content and providing content streams in these social media sites. You'll be amazed at the level of interactivity that you get from potential prospects, because you're not only connecting to the customer that you sold last week, you're connecting, and your LinkedIn update is showing up not only there, but in many of the different feeds that that particular customer is connected to. So Twitter as well. So Twitter has some of its own different rules. Twitter is you have to follow to get followed. So you have to follow people that are interested in what you're interested in. So once you start doing that and you start posting some of the information, you'll get that interactivity. If you notice, my LinkedIn and my Twitter have very similar branding, almost identical. This is about your brand as a rep. This isn't about your company's brand. This isn't about when I worked at Xerox or even when I worked at, now I work here at ZynBit, I'm with ZynBit. This is about my brand as a valued expert in my field. So my branding is important to me. So not only is the message that I'm providing, but actually the imagery and everything else, I want it to be kind of uniform across all digital medias. And let's talk about a little bit about content on Twitter. And actually this is content about LinkedIn and Twitter and everything else. While we're going to talk a little bit about how to create content and how to create your own content, one of the most important things you can be down with is what something we call OPC. So are you down with OPC? Well, what is OPC? OPC is other people's content. There is a plethora, a virtual cacophony of information out there that other people are providing. All of this other content, whether it be on LinkedIn or Twitter, that you can be looking at, sharing, and commenting on. There are multiple leaders, whatever industry you're in. If you're selling molecular colliders or superconductors, or if you're selling fax machines, there are leaders within your industries that you can be following and sharing and liking their content. And again, it is about liking, commenting, sharing, and repeating often. And then about original content. So what does that look like? So first off, all of you, since you have a LinkedIn, you should be looking up what you sell under the posts capability under search. So when you go into search in LinkedIn, you can search widgets or copiers or software or whatever you sell, and then you can view posts, all the posts that people are writing about widgets or copiers or healthcare software or anything else to that effect. And that's where you can start finding what's going on in your industry, what people are interested in. Because again, remember, it's not about what you want to communicate. It's not about you want to say, well, my widget saves 30% on widget costs. Customers aren't interested in that. What they're interested in is what they're interested in. You have to go where they are. Once you find leaders within your industry, you need to go ahead and look at what they're posting and then comment on it. And what you'll find is if your comments are insightful enough, people will comment on yours, they will like yours, they will connect to you, so on and so forth. Now, how do you find some of this content outside of LinkedIn? Well, I'm going to provide you some links at the end of this, but BlogRank is a great way to go ahead and find whatever blogs you're interested in, business blogs, industry blogs, everything else, and you can go ahead and find them and utilize that data, that content to provide valuable insight to your particular network. And then you can also create your own content. And by creating your own content, you know, you can tell stories that are happening in your business life. Here I went ahead about a month ago and I made a post about a cold email that I got from a rep. And I posted it to my network and I said, hey, what do you guys think about this? And you see I went ahead and brought in a couple of experts within our industry by highlighting their name and bringing them into my post. I can't tell you the last time I remember I did something that 21,000 people saw. And I can tell you just from this post alone, I have gotten a whole bunch of connection requests and a whole bunch of follows, and more importantly, a whole bunch of people that are interested in what I sell at the end of the day. So again, it's a matter of scope. It's a matter of I could get on the phone from now until I turn 82, and I won't be able to talk to 21,000 people. But with a single post, I was able to communicate a value proposition to them. So I know what you may be saying, Derek, this sounds great. I would love to do this, but I've got a quota. I've got calls I have to make. I got a boss breathing down my back. I got to enter data into the CRM. I got kids at home. I know. I have all of the same things. You may not feel you have the time. So here's another piece of technology that you can be utilizing, or a piece of technology like this to help you. There are social media managers. And what these social media managers do, and this is the one I use, it's called eClincher. And what it does is it provides me a way where I can preload all of my social media activity that I want to go ahead and do at the very beginning of the week if I so desire. So here you can see the entire week that we're talking, I went ahead and preloaded at least 1 or 2 social media posts on LinkedIn and Twitter that are going to go out regardless of what I'm doing. And as a matter of fact, if I time this correctly, it is 8:33. At 8:30, while I was talking, I had a social media post go out on Twitter talking about, and you can take a look at my Twitter feed, talking about me being on a webinar and me posting socially at the same time using technology. So the fact of the matter remains is that you can have it all. So what I usually do is on Sunday, I spend about 90 minutes or 2 hours while I'm watching a game or I'm doing something else, and I sit there at my computer at the kitchen table and I preload my social media for the week. And the great part about these tools, it's not only the schedule, you can also tune it to provide content. So here I have a whole bunch of what are called RSS feeds, where I can see from major publications information and content that's coming out that I can reshare, retweet, and repost on LinkedIn. I can also curate data or curate feeds. I can say, I want to look at everything out there about B2B sales or about Salesforce, about other things. And I can have that all come into one place. And even better, I can go ahead and turn on monitoring. So I can monitor hashtags and keywords on Twitter. So here you see my Twitter monitoring. I'm looking at everything that has to do with prospecting or sales or Salesforce or ZynBit or even myself, and people are talking about me on Twitter. I have all of this coming into one place. So I sit there on Sunday for 2 hours and I front load my week. And then that way I can concentrate on what my boss wants me to do or what my organization wants me to do. So you definitely can. The technology does exist out there to go ahead and do a lot of this for you. It still takes you finding good content or creating good content, but the fact of the matter is it's no longer I don't have the time to be socially posting or doing these types of things. Okay, another hacker alert. People like funny. They just like funny. Everybody on this phone call has a sense of humor. You're in sales, you have to have a sense of humor. Nobody can knock on 100 doors and get 100 no's and not laugh about it and last in this industry long. Right? So people like funny, but you can use funny to provide content, to inform and even provide insight. And so here's a content sheet that I'm giving you here. And you probably, if you're like me, you like memes. You probably see these in your feeds, and they're great and they're fantastic, and you think they're really funny. And sometimes you share them, but you wonder about who's creating these. Well, after this call, hopefully you're creating them. Because I have found that memes are a great way to go ahead and communicate either a value prop or a question or something else, provide a laugh, and also provide a little insight. So the solution I use is free, and it's called Image Flip, and it's a meme generator. And you can go there, and it's got all the images for you. It's got everything there. So if I'm looking for a meme that I want to create, and I can look through all these particular memes, and I'm going to click one. I'm going to go ahead and click on Archer's face down there at the bottom. It even gives me an example of how the memes are used and the context are how they're used. So in this case, Archer asks a question, and then he gives a real basic kind of obvious answer. Do you want X? Well, if you want X, that's how you get X. So when I create a meme like this, do you want to create content using memes? Because that's how you create content using memes. I'm done. I generate the meme, I have the picture on my desktop, and then I upload it to Twitter or LinkedIn, maybe with a little comment, or I load it in my social media manager for it to be posted at a later date. There, you've just been able to go ahead. Now everyone here can create memes and create humorous ways to interact with clients. I can tell you, memes are a great way. I get a lot of feedback from memes, and it really is something extra that you can do that doesn't take a lot of time, but can drive traffic not only to your social media sites, but also to your brand. So, Derek, that's all great. That's all outbound. But how does that work with actual social selling, right? So I've scrubbed my LinkedIn. I'm doing the content. I'm sharing. I'm liking. But quite honestly, I've got kids at home, and my kids can't eat likes. And when I go to the bank to mail my my mortgage, they don't take shares. They take money, and I need to be selling stuff to people. Well, the way this works is, again, at the very beginning we talked about pipeline, a lack of pipeline. And the issue with the lack of pipeline is we are not connecting with people that are interested or want to go ahead and buy what we are selling. That's a very, very basic definition of that. So how does all of this front loading of insight and information actually help? Well, I'm going to give an example here, and I was lucky enough to have the individual that I'm giving the example of here. She's actually in the webinar right here, and this is the story of how we connected. So I think it's incredibly important for you to go ahead and see how this works. So about a couple weeks ago, I went ahead and made a post on social media. And I believe it was a post about an email from a rep that I got in regards to how they were trying to cold email me. And this individual, Janine, went ahead and commented on it. And she made this great little comment, and she talked a little bit about how she would do the email in a more positive tone and everything else. So the fact of the matter is Janine went ahead and saw something I posted. She went and took the time to comment on it. So when I take a look at Janine, I see that she's got a couple 2,000 followers. She is active in social. And when I take a look at her company in Sales Navigator, in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, now all of a sudden I'm seeing that they're between 1,000 and 5,000 employees. They've got international scope. She's located in Canada. And then when I checked my own CRM, I found out that they were Salesforce. They use Salesforce as a CRM. So since kind of that is my ideal customer profile, a sales organization that is large, a lot of potential licenses, international reach, looking to go ahead and move deals through the pipeline, and most likely are looking at sales enablement software at some period of time, right? So knowing that, I took a look at Janine's activity. And I saw a little bit about what she's interested in and what she's posting. And lo and behold, I took a look at one of her posts. And I saw something that she wrote, and I read it. So this whole process that you just saw here probably took longer for me to talk about it than it actually took to do it. But I went ahead and was able to go ahead and do this. So once I read her post, I went ahead and sent her an email. And now this is no longer a cold kind of email that I'm sending out to someone that I don't know. It's not someone I'm picking up the phone and I did 5 minutes of LinkedIn research for. And now this is someone who's already interacted with me, that already knows me, that's already went a little, commented on something I've done, and now I've done a little research on. So what I did with her is I went ahead and I personalized that first part of the content. I said, thank you for looking at my post. I liked your idea. Hey, I like that, I just followed you. Thanks for posting the TED Talk. I really liked your post reflections. And I mentioned a little bit about what was inside the post. Now I read the post. So I went ahead and did this. So I personalized that content up front. Then I went ahead and wanted to provide her some market insight. I know a bunch of people are talking about prospecting, right? So I went ahead and talked a little bit about this. Some of you may have gotten similar emails as well on this. I went ahead and provided a content link where I'm showing her where she can register for this particular webinar. She can also, I did something I call the anti-pitch. The anti-pitch is right here where I go ahead and so no big sales pitch. This is simply what we do. If you're interested, you can take a look at what's going on down there in my signature. So I call it the anti-pitch, and you'd be surprised how well it works. So again, I look forward to talking with you. I talked about my social presence here. I went ahead and provided a proof source. Now let me talk very quickly about a proof source. I went and every email I send out has a link to our customer reviews, because I know that 80% of customers will avoid a company with bad reviews on social media. So the fact that our reviews are like 4.8 out of 5, I include that link, because I know that that's another proof source for customers. So Derek, while all this is well and good, you may be saying, well, if Janine doesn't comment back, or she doesn't get into the, if she doesn't interact with the register for the webinar or something else, this isn't really a value for me. Well, again, I'm going to show you another tool, and this is our tool, ZynBit. And what ZynBit allows you to do, it allows you to go ahead and see exactly what is being done with the email that you just sent out. So Janine, I can see that she opened my email. I can see that she clicked the link for register, and I can see that she even clicked at ZynBit.com what I'm interested in. So I know she's interacting with my email. This is regardless of whether or not she sends me a response or not, right? But wait, I can also take a look at my website analytics right here in my email, and I can say, oh, Janine, it was interested in sales and driving sales force. She went to that part of my website. She looked at my contact information, and oh, Janine also looked at pricing. So from a post that I sent out there to the world, Janine interacted with me. She's a larger enterprise, she's a representative of a larger enterprise sales client that has looked at this email, looked at me online, looked at my pricing, looked at my product, and turned around and actually registered for this webinar. I think, and you know, and if Janine thinks she's going to not hear from me after this webinar, she's sorely mistaken. I've been in sales for a long time. This smells like a lead to me. And because I was able to follow Janine and I found out who her company was all through LinkedIn, I also know that they just got a new vice president of sales in their UK area. That was in my feed today, Cornerstone on Demand. So Cornerstone on Demand not only is now a potential opportunity for me, but now I know information about them, and I know that there's things going on. So again, this is great for the one-offs of how I can go ahead and interact with people that are interacting with me. But you may be saying, Derek, that's great, but what about scaling? I can't wait for people to comment on my LinkedIn or my Twitter in order to try to sell them. Well, you can, but other than that, let's just say, okay, let's talk about scaling. How do I do something like this? How do I reach out to multitudes of people in order to do this? Well, here's another product plug that I don't get any money for. This is actually a free application. It's called Elusify. And what Elusify is, it is crowd-sourced B2B sales leads. What it does is when you sign up, it takes a look at your contacts, just like it takes a look at everybody else's contacts, and it provides access to those contacts in a central database, just the names and just the email addresses and titles. No phone numbers, no anything else like that. This is all for social. And so by signing on and doing this, what you're able to do is get from 200 to 500 leads specific to what you're looking for a week. And these are real leads. This isn't a list I'm buying from someone that is selling lists. These are contacts from other sales reps out there in the world that are calling on them, and these are good email addresses. These are good titles. So I do this every week, and these are the lead titles that I look for. And what do I do once I get these lead titles? I go ahead and provide and create decent, informational, outbound emails. And because I'm personalizing a little of the content, providing a little marketing insight, citing proof sources, and providing my social presence, I provide all that. I can also see if they're looking at it and if they're interested in what I'm providing. I do this every day. This is my main way of prospecting. Not to say I don't get on webinars, I don't get on the phone. That all is further down the list for me. But my social presence drives the traffic to me, along with regular inbound marketing and those types of things, in order to go ahead and provide ways for me to communicate to people within the world there. And it's using a multitude of different tools in order to go ahead and do that. And then at the end of the day, once I've determined that they're interested in me, they're interested in what I'm doing, we've already connected and communicated a little bit, and they want to talk, that's when I pick up the phone or I ask for the meeting. At the end, not at the beginning. So we have another hacker here. Communicate the way it works for your prospects, not the way experts say. I like email. Email works for me. I do get on the phone secondarily. There are a lot of people on the phone that like the phone. If you like the phone and it works for your organization, do that. Is cold calling dead? Isn't it dead? I don't know. Third base. It's completely up to you guys as far as what works best for you. I don't know, how your customers want to be spoken to. You do. So do that thing. But do it smart, and do it in providing insight and providing ways that you can go ahead and communicate what they want to go ahead and speak about. So how do you act your way into this new way of selling? Well, there's a couple questions that you have to ask yourself. First, you have to ask yourself, who are the people that I should be talking to? Who is your ideal customer? It's called an ICP, ideal customer profile, and I need to identify those people. For me, it's sales leaders, it's CRM administrators, and it's salespeople. For you, it may be technology buyers, IT, CIO, it may be HR people, AP people, whomever those people are. You should identify who you should be talking to. What are they interested in? Newsflash, they're not interested in saving 30% on their widget costs by buying your widget. They just aren't. They are interested in things and stuff, and it's probably best for you to figure out what those are and find them socially and look for the insights that are going on within your vertical to go ahead and provide that. Where are they spending their time? Not physically, but well, maybe physically if that's important, but definitely virtually. Where are they virtually spending their time? What groups do they belong to on LinkedIn? What organizations they belong to? One of my biggest, one of the things that I normally look at is my Salesforce user groups. We actually communicate to Salesforce user groups across the country, and we go out and present information like this to Salesforce user groups. The way we connect to them is through is socially. The way we're able to do that is to communicate a value that we provide outside of what we sell, which is ZynBit, where we talk to administrators, Salesforce administrators, on how they can get better adoption, regardless of whether they buy our product or not. And by offering that value, I can tell you that by spending the time where they are, it provides us value in pipeline, and more importantly, pipeline at the end of the day. There's two questions here that are really important, and they're probably the hardest ones to answer. Why am I personally interesting to my customers, and how can I get them to respond? All of this other stuff is really easy. Those are probably the two hardest questions you can ask yourself. Why am I interesting to them, and how can I get them to respond? If you're interested in talking to me a little bit about it, outside what we do at ZynBit and selling, talk about your sales process, talk about your product and how it may be interesting and how you may be interesting as an actual value proposition yourself, you can communicate with me in a number of different ways. I'm more than willing to go ahead and help and mentor and talk to you about how you can go ahead and better represent yourself socially to go ahead and sell. And again, that's a conversation outside what we do as far as ZynBit. But outside of that, let's say, you know, Derek, I like the information. I don't want to talk to you. So what can I do? Well, here are the things that you can do, I believe. First off, create a social selling presence. If you don't do anything else other than get rid of that resume, which is on LinkedIn, you will be way ahead of the game as far as everybody else that you're probably competing against. But create a social selling presence where you're offering insight. And you utilize that social selling insight to inform and weigh prospects. What does that mean? Well, I'm informing you, and then I'm figuring out whether or not it's important for me to reach back out to you. There were other people besides Janine that commented on that particular thread, but quite honestly, she was representative of one of the largest customers that did, so I weighed that particular prospect. Utilizing social and outbound, again, whatever works for you. If it's emails, if it's phone calls, if it's carrier pigeon, it's smoke signals, whatever works for you, use that and connect to have meetings, demos, web conferences, communicate the way the client wants to, not necessarily the way you want to. You can utilize tools like eClincher, Twitter, LinkedIn, Elusify, and ZynBit to empower your social selling. And at the last slide, I'm going to provide you links to all of those. And then by using Elusify or something else, you can literally reach out to 200 to 500 prospects a week, offering insights and interesting information, tracking their interaction with you. So that's kind of what your homework is if you choose to accept it, a little bit of Mission Impossible here for you. And no software was harmed in the making of this webinar. So you can find eClincher, Elusify, LinkedIn, Twitter, ImageFlip, and ZynBit all online. And get this, for at least the first 14 days for eClincher and ZynBit, everything else is free. Everything is 0% down. So you can experiment with these technologies without having to go ahead and invest right now. And again, this is entirely up to you what you utilize. There's other products out there that work for social media. There's other things for leads. But here is an opportunity for you to walk out of this webinar, to go to these sites, and to say, yeah, I'm interested in utilizing Elusify as a lead generation. I'm gonna go ahead and create a Twitter profile and really start feeding it. Image flip, I'm gonna start creating memes. This gives you the opportunity to do that. And then lastly, the content. The 50 business blogs and blog metrics, you can go to this website here and find those blogs for your content. If you just go to blogmetrics.org, it has every blog listed known to mankind. So if you sell custom airplane parts for Cessnas, there's a blog out there about it, and you could go ahead and find that blog and link that blog and pull up information on it and provide those links to your clients. So with that, that's kind of the end of this particular webinar here. And I'm interested in if there's any questions in regards to what I do. You can ask the questions here. You can also provide them in email or Skype or carrier pigeon form to me at the after the webinar if that works for you. But hopefully this has been valuable for you.
Derek, those are great 6 tools that I think everyone can take away with today and go and use them. We'd love to hear your feedback too. If you have any great success stories, tweet to us at ZynBit or at Real Sales Advice. That'd be great.
Oh, well, we've just got a couple of comments. Looks like people will be taking some information, and yes, hopefully this has been informative to you. So again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than willing to go ahead and talk to you about how you can reach out socially to your particular clients. Again, my clients are salespeople, but whomever your clients are, and we can craft a way where you can best communicate to them.
Well, it doesn't seem that we've gotten any other questions. Thank you everyone for joining. We've recorded this session today, so we'll be sure that everyone gets a copy of it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. Happy selling. I hope your quarter worked really, really well. And I tell you what, social selling is a great way you've got 90 days to the next end of quarter. This is a great way to go ahead and see what will be in that pipeline in the next 90 days. So take care, happy selling, and I'm here to help in any way I can.
Okay, all attendees are off. That was good, Derek. I think it went really well.
Yeah, we've already got people tweeting about it.
Awesome.
Mike Garrison just tweeted to his followers saying he just went ahead and finished up a webinar that offered real value to him.
Awesome. Cool. I'll retweet that. Did he tweet it to ZynBit or to you?
To me, but I just want to, so but you can go ahead and I'm sure you can see it in my feed because I just retweeted it. So
cool.
Cool beans.
And so we created an infographic off of the email template that we'll send everyone to, just as like kind of a follow-up item.
Great.
reference sheet. And then I was thinking what we could do is do a quick blog post on 6 free prospecting tools that you can take advantage of today, which would be like the stuff on that last slide.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
And then I'm also going to murder my cat when I get off the call. She's literally driving me insane. Like, I think that she is freaked out about being in a new place.
Oh yeah, that's definitely probably the. Yeah, I know. I took my animals and I locked them out of the den here. So.
Yeah, well, I locked her in the laundry room, but then she like was scratching the door. So anyway. Okay, well, I will make sure that they get the follow-up email once the last report's attendee report is ready, and I can share that with you too. Maybe I can do a draft copy of that blog post and see what you think about it.
Fantastic. Sounds like a winner.
Okay, cool.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Derek. Bye.
Bye.